So last Friday was World Press Freedom Day, and there was a lot of conversation around it. I actually went for an event, and this is where I ran into my guest, today. I knew I had to get on the show, after she spoke. And honestly, you have to make sure that you listen very keenly, because there's so much that we're talking about today. So let me introduce my guest. It's a whole lot of bio, but I'm going to try to not go through everything, but just let you know the very, very important work. She's done really, really important work. My guest today on the show is Mojirayo Ogunlana, right? And she's a digital rights lawyer. She's worked at national and regional levels, working to safeguard a free and open internet while upholding human rights. She's championed strategic litigation in courts to challenge constraint on freedom of expression, association, and assembly. And she also coordinates advocacy campaigns to enforce these fundamental rights across West Africa. Okay, she's had over 12 years of legal practice, and she's committed the past 8 years to defending the rights of journalists. So you know why I had to get her here, right? To talk about this very, very important issue. And she's done that primarily on a pro bono basis, arguing both before Nigerian courts and the West African Regional ECOWAS Court. Okay, she is also the principal partner of MON Legal, a law firm based in Abuja, and also the founder of DigiCivic Initiative, which is a non-governmental organization. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Faith. It's nice to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here. I mean, you can sense my excitement, right? Because I know we're going to have an interesting conversation.
Yes,
so let's just start off with, the issue of, because when we talked, you were talking about, how you representing journalists and things like that. For me, I listened to you talk about representing journalists. I knew that I had to talk to you about this. What started you off with, DigiCivic and doing this work of just making sure that journalists have representation?
Okay. Well, let me just go back to 2015. In 2015, I decided to have my own law firm. And when I took that decision, that was around September, I just went ahead, in faith. I went all the way to the Corporate Affairs Commission and just registered my law firm. When I did that, so I was not in the situation where I was wondering, what do I do from here? So at that time, I was very, how do I say, I was favored because I had people around me with journalists who were my friends. And that one of them introduced me to a particular case that was happening at the ECOWAS court. So I went to the ECOWAS court. When I got to the ECOWAS court, I watched the proceedings and all, and immediately I took like into it because it was different from where I was coming from. In the Nigerian courts, we have so many applications. These are holding back the judgment, holding back rulings and all. But this court has no business with your delays. Just go straight to the issues. So while I was there, I began to build on myself, and I started learning more about the rights of journalists, and then also started, I got trained for digital rights. I got trained by the right organizations, and then I just picked up this. And luckily for me, Amnesty International approached me, and over 7 organizations, and they were like, oh, we need you to take an amicus application to the ECOWAS court. Amicus says we are the friends of the court. So that was how I was favored too. I keep using that favor because it's not something that you just bump into this, by chance. So I then was representing Amnesty International, not a subsidiary or anything. And I was representing the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, David K.
Oh, wow.
And Access Now, and Article 19, a lot of Pen Africa. And, it was a very huge case because it was a case against the Gambia, Republic of Gambia. And it was a case about press freedom. And so this was, if you have known about the story of Yaya Jammeh was a law unto himself in the Gambia. And so journalists didn't have the right to freely practice their profession, even to the extent that they were killed, they were incarcerated. And then in this case, the Federation of African Journalists was the name of the case. So I came in as an amicus. Ordinarily, the court frowns at amicus But my case was the first in which the court took a landmark decision and decided that you can come based on the inherent jurisdiction of the court. I think that was a booster for me because I was doing something that a lot of seniors ahead of me have gone to the same court and they've rejected the amicus application. But mine was taken. And so from then I decided that, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to defend press freedom because, and again, there was something significant about that case. That case, the judges ruled that criminal defamation is not acceptable in this age and time. That when you have any issues about defamation, it should be a civil
That's
issue.
very interesting.
Yes, criminal defamation, sedition, treason laws, they do not have any basis anymore in this age and time. That those laws were colonial. They were colonial in nature. So till today, I also believe that criminal defamation shouldn't be, an issue. So I'm just saying that as from then, I continued that way in that trajectory. I started defending journalists. I've defended a journalist against, took a case of a journalist against the NBC. I've taken a case of a journalist against the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I was one of the lawyers who filed the case against the Nigerian government for Twitter because I was thinking of the rights of my journalists. I was representing David Undeyi, Fisayo Shoyombo, and some other journalists with some civil society organizations. So it has become like a part of me. When I read about the fact that journalists all over the world, they go through this kind of repression, and it is bothersome, especially when we are in a democratic society.
Exactly.
So I think that's how I became so installed
in this particular space.
In this particular space.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, fantastic. Just hearing about your journey. I mean, we'll probably talk more about that later. Maybe even off here. But let's talk about this defamation thing that you talked about. But because I remember there was another issue during the panel that you were part of talking about defamation. We know that a lot of journalists have been, arrested, picked up just on this issue of criminal defamation. And we're looking at it as being also part of, our Cybercrime Act, which I want us to get into, as well. There's a lot going on with the Cybercrime Act now if you go on social media, but we will not touch on those ones. But let's talk about it as it relates to journalists and the work, that they do. You're talking about the fact that, defamation should not be criminal. But that's not the case here in Nigeria.
Okay, yeah. In Nigeria, the truth is, under the criminal law, under the penal code also, criminal defamation has been sustained. And it's unfortunate because you would think that a democratic nation like Nigeria would have done away with that provision. Because when we look at it critically, it doesn't do what it is supposed to do. The law is used to hound journalists. I've had a journalist from Bauchi who wrote an expose with facts against the former House of Reps speaker, that's Dongara. The next thing we knew, they were filing a case against the guy and taking him to court. Before you knew it, the police was asking for his attendance at the police station. So I have discovered that this particular law is offensive because what they look at is that, oh, what you have said, it has cost another person harm. Or
it's like very broad.
The previous cybercrimes section, the previous section 24 of the Cyber Crimes Act that says when you knowingly press falsehood to insult. Yeah. Insult is very special. Even the way it was couched. In fact, I think people should actually maybe a lot of people are not they don't know this, but we need to actually say it. It says that anything that you sending out a message, one knows for the purpose of causing annoyance. How do you define annoyance, people? Causing annoyance, causing inconvenience, causing insult, danger, injury, criminal intimidation, enmity, hatred. Do you know how many journalists have been held based on this? Because anybody can just wake up and say, you have just insulted me with your
you've caused me annoyance. So let's talk about the fact that the Nigerian journalists, I mean, there's a guarantee of press freedom in the Constitution.
Very, very guaranteed.
this goes against that. If you're looking at it, it also even goes against the freedom of expression, because anybody can say, oh, you caused me annoyance or you insulted me. I mean, so where do you draw the line between freedom of expression or even freedom of the press and this particular insult
I
and
think the
annoyance?
proponents
And
of this sort of laws, these vague and broad laws, the proponents would come up with Section 45 of the Constitution, which tells you that your right, under Section 39, which gives you the right to freedom of expression, and that particular law can be restricted, or that right can be restricted in certain circumstances, and they will cite the issue of national security, public safety, public.
yes,
They give you all these public health. But the question is, when somebody tells you that you have annoyed them, is that an issue for public health? Is that an issue for public safety? Yes, we know that where your right stops, another person's right starts. But is it enough in a democratic society? In a democratic society, we have had a judge of the Supreme Court. I cannot pick that name. I think it's Olatunji or something. Where the Supreme Court had said, if you take on public position, you must have enough tolerance, because with public seats
yes, I
comes
think I read that particular
tolerance,
judgment,
because
yes.
you need to know that the position you are occupying has given you up to criticisms. You should be able to take on criticisms.
Yes.
So we are finding out that the crop of politicians of today, they do not want to be criticized. They want to tell you this is how it is, take it like
And
that.
just take it.
Yes. For instance, you saw when a journalist from Arise TV was questioning the minister for works.
For works.
And the minister was trying to deride her and make a joke out of what was not a joke. We have people's lives. You are destroying people's properties, money, and all that. And a journalist asking you,
Did you get
get the appropriate
environmental
approval?
for
Did
this?
you do that? And you were turning it to a joke and laughing at her. Now, it shows the kind of people that we have at the helms of affairs today. And they do not want you to criticize them. They do not want you to come out and say anything. So they would run under a provision. Thank God it is repealed now. A provision such as Section 24. And the way it has been amended now, we can say it is a bit safe. We can't say it is totally safe, because it says if whatever you're doing is going to is likely to bring about a chaos, like that is exactly the import, or is going to lead to war. So it's still vague.
Because how do you know what is going to lead to war?
Yes.
How do you know what will lead to chaos? I mean,
Exactly.
if you just did a reporting, and somebody else decides to run with it in another way, why should that now be on you?
Exactly. But shouldn't journalists, okay, I think maybe people need to understand what press freedom is really talking about. Now, press freedom is, really is hinged about a journalist being able to practice its profession. Being able, because a journalist is more, owes more duty to the public.
Yes.
Especially in a democracy. You owe the public a duty to report the fact and the truth. So when a journalist finds out the truth and reports it, why should a government come against that journalist? Why shouldn't the government use that as an opportunity to resolve the issue? But no, you see people like the former Minister of Information say anything that is going to embarrass the corporate existence of Nigeria. And then you wonder that you are thinking about anything that would embarrass, or that will embarrass the corporate existence of Nigeria. But what are you doing as a government to avoid such situations that are factual? So even if a journalist, didn't see it, did Bosse, the girl sitting down in that neighborhood, see that this happened? So the fact that Bosse is not talking about it, maybe because it is not something she feels that she owes that responsibility for. But the journalist is bound by the the ethics of journalism to report this truth, to report this, because it makes the government accountable. This is their duty. It's a big burden. So you can understand why I'm a bit sentimental and passionate about it. It's a burden they carry. It's not something that somebody wants to wake up tomorrow and want to put themselves in the place of danger. They are practically thinking about us, the public. They're thinking
Public
about us.
interest.
It's public interest. They're thinking about, how do I allow my people to know this? Because you need to hold your government accountable. You need to hold them accountable and responsible. And that is what Section 22 of the Constitution also says. It says that the journalist holds this responsibility to us as the people, since they said we, the people of Nigeria.
Right.
Then you owe us that responsibility to tell us what is truthful,
To inform and tell
to
the
inform
truth.
us,
Yes.
and then make sure that you hold our government accountable and responsible. And that is what they do.
That is basically the job of a journalist, to hold government accountable. But I mean, there's no government anywhere that enjoys being held accountable. No member of government. It's just that, in this part of the world, they take it a step further. They can just pick you up or like we say it now, just disappear you, and that's it. There's of course a case going on now. Yes. About if a journalist that there's no conversation, there's no, I mean, just that idea of, somebody wrote a petition, so we'll just pick you up.
Exactly. That's Daniel Ojuku's case.
Daniel Ojukwu, that's what's going on with him right now. It's been held for 6 years, for 6 days now.
6 days.
And if they had not looked for a way to get him, they wouldn't even know where he was being held. They wouldn't know why he's being held, and it's just gone.
And that's just one journalist that
we know about.
That we know about. Meanwhile, there has been a journalist that has been removed like that from circulation for 2 years and 6 months that Nigerians didn't even know, until an investigative journalist went into the situation and reported the case. Immediately, do you know the interesting part? They know when they are wrong. Immediately, the journalist brought out the story. It was a splash. They immediately sued the guy to court, at the magistrate court. And guess what they were going about? They were suing him for terrorism. So you see that there is an issue, and that is sad.
Let's talk about press freedom in Nigeria. What do you think it is?
It's at level 0. I'm sorry to say, it is at level 0, because not only do they fear for their lives from government, they fear for their lives from citizens. Ordinary citizens who cannot take criticisms. And I will use Chioma's case, or with the man from, what's the tomato? Erisco. They can't take criticism. The man from Erisco had the opportunity. That was the very key opportunity to address the issue that was raised in that video made by Chioma. It was an opportunity to even gain the support and the love of your customers.
People do reviews everywhere.
You do reviews. Review is normal. People actually invite critics to, these 5-star restaurants. They invite critics to come into their restaurant and critique their work. That's how you get better. That is what we should promote. But I'm convinced that the problem actually is the military mindset that we have. We were in that military situation for a very long time, and the ones who fought for democracy are now at the ends of affairs, and they are now behaving exactly like the military guys that they were fighting against. So there's a problem.
So let's talk about, the idea of, I know we're talking about the press primarily, but I think it's also a bit intertwined with the issue of, freedom of expression as well, because Chioma's case was obviously a case of freedom of expression, because she was not a journalist. She just did a review as a customer, and the case continued like this. Let's also talk about, the role the police plays in this, because at the end of the day, we have laws. You cannot hold somebody for more than 48 hours without charging them and things like that. The police clearly violates this every single time. And the police will come out to tell you that, oh no, they're following the due process of the police. What do you think about that? Okay, so I'm one of those people who have been very shocked recently with the kind of powers that the police have started, wielding. Because a policeman picks you up today, goes to a magistrate court that is like 500 kilometers away from where they picked you up, and then gets a remand. They put a lot of funny things in that document that justifies them to hold you, and then you see them, they don't even get 2 weeks. Most times they're getting like a month, 2 months to hold you. So that thing is called the remand. Wow. Yes, a remand, order, and that is what they've been using. I was in a situation where I almost practically didn't believe that this law, there's a way. The only thing, I should just be sincere with you, as a lawyer, it's even more stressful. A lot of people do not know that if you are a lawyer and you find yourself in a situation where your client is helpless,
it bothers you because you feel that you are a minister in the temple of justice, and when you see that this something an injustice is taking place, you should be able to resolve it, or you should be able to be able to intervene. So you walk into a police station and you say, this is what is happening. They say, we have a remand order. Lawyer, go to court and fight fundamental rights. It's too much of a boldness.
Oh, wow.
And that tells you the truth, that we are in a state of impunity.
So why are the judges, whether it's magistrate judge or whatever, issuing this remand orders anyway?
Exactly. Yeah, it's one there. Question that I am not even able to answer, because I feel that there's a way you can paint it and say that, oh, the police has a very wide power. They have the power of arrest, the power of detention. They can say, oh, there's a suspicion, there's reasonable. And the word they use, that's reasonable suspicion. It's reasonable suspicion is the most vaguest term I've
and also very
heard.
Subjective. Who determines it?
Very subjective. Yes, I funny enough, I did a master's, right? And the master's was on criminal law enforcement and criminal justice with the Ahmadu Bello University. And I can tell you, it's frustrating because I see this and I know that the police has a wide level of discretion.
Wow.
That is so scary. And imagine a world where you don't even have a constitution that can hold the police. It would be terrible. So we have a constitution and we are in this state of impunity. I feel that as jurists, we can hold them more responsible. Maybe, I'm thinking off my head. Maybe we can give a remand that would not extend 24 hours. I think that is
because why would you give the police the powers to hold anybody for 2 weeks, 1 month?
Yeah,
I think just hold people.
Yes, I think it should be 24 hours. Bring this person before me. 24 hours, bring this person before me, or remand, say, okay, 48 hours, bring this person before me. I think that's what lawyers, the body of lawyers, should be canvassing at this time.
But let me ask you as a lawyer, because, my knowledge of law, of course, is quite limited. But there's this, the idea that you're not supposed to hold somebody for more than 48 hours without charging them. That is the law. So why should this supersede that?
There is a kilometer, no, yes, by filing a process before the magistrate is them saying that they've fulfilled bringing
in charge, and then so they have a way. So they have a way to work around. Exactly. It's a loophole
it's a loophole that they have been able to work
exploits.
Oh wow, which is very sad, and that's what they have been using now. And I think that it can only be resolved with the right stakeholders. And Nigerian Bar Association is a major stakeholder in this particular thing, because what our motto says is that we are there for the rule of law, to pursue the rule of law. And I don't think that when the police can take these powers into their hands, that's the rule of law.
Does the Nigerian Bar Association know about this as an issue?
The Nigerian Bar is a big it's a big name.
Well, I can't speak. Maybe, of course, you can't speak for Nigerian Bar Association, but I'm just wondering, like, when you have your, you always have this, the 7 days or how many days every year that you have all these.
Oh, the AGC.
Yes, somebody could present it, because it is something that needs to be taken up. Usually the fight for democracy, it hinges on two major people. I know that, yes, you have the executive and the legislature, but I think it hinges basically on the judiciary and, of course, journalists. And if for some reason it comes across as the judiciary is enabling or allowing these things go unchecked, it's almost like we're fighting a losing battle, isn't it?
Yes, and I agree with you, and I see it even as a problem in the society, because people just lose faith in the law itself, and that we don't want that society. And as much as I know a lot of lawyers who are really trying to counter this situation. I know them, and they are usually, how do I say, public interest lawyers. Most of them do not even have funding. They are doing it out of the passion of their hearts. That now at a Paradigm Initiatives, Paradigm Initiative is one of those organizations that really invested in digital rights.
Yes.
Now at an event, we had to ask the representative of the Ministry of Justice, why was the Cyber Crimes Act amended without the input of relevant stakeholders? That is the problem. That will continue to be the major problem. When you go to, when you
So it's
say,
like a hush critical commitment.
exactly, and then they claim that, oh, we brought
They said they had public
stakeholders.
hearing.
But do you know that you didn't bring the major stakeholders, people that are really invested? How many people were aware of this amendment taking place?
I wasn't aware. I was aware after the fact.
We were shocked because we were at that program and we're shocked for the first time. I was getting a copy at that program for the first time from
I just heard it was amended. I didn't know when it was amended.
So they just did it. That is not how it's supposed to be. It's not a secret document. It's a public document. It's going to affect our lives. It's going to affect every one of us, whether we like it or not. So such a document should have been with the necessary stakeholders. So I totally want to say that in the amendment of any law, the government needs to recognize the relevant stakeholders, and it must have a multi-dimensional, multi-stakeholder approach to any amendment. See, regulation is not a government, it's not a politician's thing. But we know that that's what they do, but it shouldn't be. It is very, 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 very anti-democratic. That is just the word for it. You're supposed to bring every stakeholder. You bring them from the CSO, you bring them from the private, and then even public, and bring them all together to the table. And then they would now decide whether this is.
I mean, you're making laws for people. They should know what you're doing.
And then, this mindset that we have a democracy, we have representatives. The representatives are supposed to, represent our interest in there. I think for a country like Nigeria, with the kind of population that we have, we really need to start thinking about it. Is this bicameral legislature working for us? Because it seems that the people do not even have the choice, do not have, a say. So I'm one of those people that actually truly believe in we need to insert referendum into the constitution somehow. We need to put it there. Yeah, we need to put it there, so that we can get a multifaceted response to issues, not just
like this
one person who claims to be representing Amuwodofin local government.
Amuwodofin is so huge, and nobody knows about it. It's a politician. Yes, who, I mean, at the end of the politicians always go after their interest first.
So they should really amend it, but they should do the right thing. They should let it go through the due process of drafting. Yeah, you should.
Do you think our government understands what freedom of the press means?
Definitely. They do understand, and they have their strategy for countering it. Because you can't say that they don't. The previous Minister of Information was a journalist for how long?
He was a journalist. And there are people here, even in this administration.
And there was no one that went against journalists as he did. He made it his life mission. Like, I am coming for you guys. He tried everything, tried to present a social media bill that we countered.
Oh, yes.
I even took it to court. I went against the bill.
You were part of people who went against that bill.
I don't know if there were other people, but I took a particular case to the Federal High Court.
Okay.
Although yes, we didn't win, but of course it was unprecedented. Nobody goes to court on a bill because it is not yet a law.
Yes.
But we had to go to court because we looked at the Constitution and saw Section 46, which says that anything that is likely, do you understand, likely to breach your constitutional right. So we saw a bill as a likelihood of a breach. And that was what we're thinking.
But it doesn't look like that's going to die, because recently the National Security Advisor was talking about social media being a national security threat, and it needs to be, regulated. We've had the Chief of Staff as well, make that statement too about how social media needs to be regulated. So they're definitely still on this trajectory.
And I would plead with the people. Don't be too sentimental by issues that are trending on social media for you to actually give the government the go-ahead. You are the ones that will suffer it, not the people in government. Please, let me restate it. You are the one that will suffer, not the politician. Because these laws, these regulations, what we have seen, what we have observed over the years is that it is you, the innocent person on the streets, who should be. Ordinarily, you should get information from your national orientation agency.
Oh, yeah.
That they fail to do. They will not educate you enough. There is no digital literacy. And yet, they will make laws to to hound you as a person and to bring problems to you. Meanwhile, them as politicians, they are removed from this reality.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. For a lot of, I mean, journalists know what the Cybercrime Act is, right? But a lot of regular people on the street, they don't even know what Cybercrime Act is. But then you make a review of a product and they pick you up and they say, "Oh, Cybercrime Act,"
And then they say,
you find out
of
there,
the law is not
and they
an
say,
excuse.
exactly, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So at the end of the day, yes, like you said, there's a lot of more information that needs to go out. People need to know a lot more about these things that are going on. You can join the conversation. The numbers to call 0817 288 7943 or 090 2199 or just send a WhatsApp message to 0909 697 5943. I am speaking with Mojirayo Ogunlana. She is a digital rights lawyer and she's very passionate about freedom of journalism, and she's been in this space for over a decade doing this marvelous work. So you can contribute to the program. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let me talk about the area of citizens and helping to maintain press freedom. Do citizens have a role to play to make sure that there's free press, especially, and I say this very carefully, so I mean, nobody should come for me, I'm not trying to deride anybody, especially in a society where we have a lot of people either too hungry to care or just plain uneducated about it. So what is the role of citizens in ensuring, a free press? What are they supposed to do and how are they supposed to go about it?
So I think one of the things that the people can do is to speak for the press. You need to speak for your journalists. You need to respect them. I know that this government has sent out several narratives over the years and making you feel as if the journalist is the enemy. Please note, the journalist is not the enemy. The journalist is the one that is acting in your interest. And so what do? If something is acting in your interest, you protect it. So you can't see a journalist in a situation where he's holding a camera and you are hitting him and say, "What are you filming?" It is wrong. This scenario I just painted happened to a journalist who ended up, his name was John, or his name is John Walaka. He was taking pictures and was taking videos of that case of a situation in a morgue and all that. And what did John Walaka was beaten terribly, and all he wanted was justice. Unfortunately, when he went to the court, the police didn't prosecute the case diligently, and he lost the case. When John Walaka came to me, I tried to convince him that, "Oh, don't worry, you will go and get a civil, get compensation in the civil court." John insisted, "I do not need their money for damages. I want them to be convicted, to show them, so that it can be an example to other people on the streets that you need to treat our journalists better. They are human beings. They are thinking about you. They're thinking about you. When they are doing their job, they are thinking about you, not themselves. So we should do better as human beings, respecting the fourth estate of the realm. It is the fourth estate. We can't, as we are, a lot of people are looking for what they will eat, and we can't all be there. But if we don't have anybody holding our government in check, just know that it means that we're going to get back into that, what Thomas Hobbes will call the state of nature, where life was brutish, nasty, and short. And that's what it does. That's what it does.
True.
Yeah.
So people need to also understand. I think it's also about the fact that they don't even understand that the press is for them.
Yeah.
They feel, "Oh, you just it's a job now,"
and they are not even being paid.
But it's for you, really. I mean, journalists, they're underpaid.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time. Trust me.
Especially for an investigative journalist,
they don't even get funding.
They don't even get funding.
So
it's
at the end of the day, people actually always need to rally around the journalists so that the government knows that, you have the back of the journalists, so they have to be accountable.
Yes, even people can act as a pressure group against their representatives and demand from their representatives to protect the rights of journalists when they are in the house deliberating. We can do that. I've seen a situation where the people recalled a
What they tried,
the House of Reps member,
House of Reps
which was a very beautiful moment in Nigeria's history, and I wish we could replicate it all the time.
They made the process so tedious.
It's
hard. It's hard to do it all the time.
I know.
They did it deliberately.
I know.
But let's talk about, I mean, the Minister of Information, the current Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, was asked about, journalists being incarcerated during his administration, and he said it, during World Press Freedom Day, that he doesn't think that there's any journalist that has been held, since Adrian took over. Of course, we have seen that is not true. About 11 journalists have been picked up and held, and incarcerated since this administration took over at different levels, and Daniel Chukwu's case is the latest and the biggest one that we have right now. And according to him, he said, "Oh no, we were solving it." That's the statement he made. We're solving it. He will soon be out and everything. And it just felt like enough importance wasn't paid to the ordeal of this young man that simply just did
this
his
is not
job.
even an offense that is not bailable. Let's look at it from that perspective. Do you get it? There shouldn't be any reason why a journalist should be kept for that long. He's not even a flight risk. You know his principal. You know where he works.
You didn't even invite him. You just picked him up.
Invite him. It's very simple case of kidnapping. It was so obvious.
You just picked him up. I contacted him basically.
And in history, we've had a journalist that disappeared like that. That Diata. Yes. Till tomorrow, nobody knows where that Diata is. But I'm just saying that this is just a reality, and it's sad for Daniel Ojukwu to still be in incarceration by now. I would have expected that the minister would say, "Okay, release him immediately." And then continue investigation, because there was already a faulty background for his arrest. He was abducted. He was not invited.
Yes,
it was not a case where they arrested him and it was made public. It was something done in the shady place.
It wasn't like he was invited and he refused.
It was already unconstitutional. So a minister of information should not even be seen coming out in public to say we are resolving it. No, what you would declare at that moment is, please release him immediately, because the rule of law has not been upheld, because that was the situation. Exactly. The rule of law was not upheld.
Because I'm looking at the messages also sent out to other journalists that, well, if you continue, that can happen to you as well. So that is creating an atmosphere of fear.
It's a threat
for journalists to do their job.
Everything is happening at the same time. Is prior restraints. What it's doing is prior restraint. Prior restraint is found out all over the world, internationally. When you try to say things ahead of time, or you put laws ahead of time just to inhibit the press. So that's what they're doing, and that is not unfair. And I want Nigerians to actually be educated. Do not concentrate on your tribal,
religious
or religious relationships. Think about the situation. What if I was the one that was picked up in this kind of situation? What if it was my brother that was picked up in this situation? What if? You see, it's like we now begin to be very passionate when it is someone close to us. But we should start thinking selflessly and start, holding them responsible. It's only the people that can hold them responsible, because whether we like it or not, the people are the ones who wield the power, because they are the ones representing us. We are the ones with the power. But it's until the people can understand the power that they wield before they can able to, challenge this. And there are just a few people in government.
Oh yeah, very, very
and
few.
Over 180 million people.
Yes, at the mercy. At the end of the day, if you do not know about the Daniel Ojukwu case, it's just, just a very, very brief overview. He was picked up. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody could reach him. His phones were taken. It was switched off. Nobody could reach him. A missing persons report was filed before the police. Mm-hmm. And after all of that, it was a private investigator that now led them to know that this guy is with the police.
Exactly.
And now he's removed from one place to the other. The police says, a petition was written against him concerning a report that he wrote. Mm-hmm. But if there's a petition, you make the person know about the petition and you arrest the person. That's usually the process.
That's the process.
But that wasn't followed until now.
Not even given access to lawyers, his family, nobody.
He couldn't communicate with anybody for how many days before he was finally
moved from Lagos all the way to Abuja.
Until now, he's been held, and that is the situation. And what it means is that if it can happen to him,
It can happen to anybody.
Who else,
It can happen to
will this
anybody.
happen? And this
I've
is a
seen
democracy.
people picked up on the streets based on archaic laws like vagrancy laws, and they just owe them, and
Nobody
nobody
knows where
knows
they
where
are.
they are. And then we've seen situation of women who now go through abuses and inhuman situations in the hands of law enforcement agents. It happens.
I mean, and also when we talked about the power of the police, it's so broad, and so
it's so broad, and they have so they have
there's so
discretion.
much
Their discretion
powers.
is so big.
That's scary in a democratic
Yes,
setting.
well, I think the basis will be, they have to fight insecurity, or they have to fight any form of criminal activity. So if you limit their rights,
oh, where are these laws when the crimes are happening? I wonder.
Yes,
just checking.
That's a very good question. So I am one of those people who have seen that, for instance, women are disproportionately affected by such laws like the Cyber Crimes Act. And you see women who actually self-censor when they, for instance, especially online female journalists, when they come online, they want to report the facts, the truth. You see people come against them and do things. Even government do not like them expressing themselves. And so, as the executive director of DigiCivic initiative,
yes, I was going to get to that.
I was able to
speak.
It now. I was able to speak with some organizations who are willing to fund any online female journalist who is going through any online abuse, any online violation.
Oh wow!
And yes, whether there is sextortion, whether there is threat to life,
that is blackmail,
whether there is
whatever.
blackmail, whether you have gone through maybe your pictures circulating, so that's what. So DigiCivic is taking up the litigation, for instance, or whatever representation that is needed at the point in time, and is taking it pro bono, so that the journalists will not have, like, how do I fund my case, or how do I fund the
because it's
lawyer?
expensive, isn't it?
Well, it's not supposed to be expensive,
but it is. Nigeria.
It's not supposed to be
also
expensive.
Because at the end of the day, some of these cases can go on for months and drag. At the end of the day, you're exhausted, you're tired, you just want it over and done with.
Exactly.
And then there are people in Nigeria who say, just let it go now. Now, people, just leave it for God.
That's the most. I've had situations where a client, not one clients have pulled out because of let's leave it for God, and it's the most annoying situation, annoying place that you can be, especially if it's involving, for instance, I think one of the things you had not stated in my bio is that I'm a gender rights person. So when you have situation of a child has been raped or defiled and they take it off your hands.
But that happens a lot with leave it for God, especially because it's always family.
God. Yeah, leave it for
God. Always happens in the family.
And God is not a respecter of evil. God is not even the founder of evil. Or how do I put it? God himself would condemn the evil and even punish the evil.
Exactly.
Even ordinary disobedience, God punishes it. If you can think about King Saul, just disobedience. So imagine somebody tells you leave it for God. That is not even scriptural.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of the ways that Nigerians have basically just giving their rights away, because if you don't follow a case to conclusion, a precedent is not set, and then the other person that's coming has to start it from the beginning all over again, and it's just like a loop, and we just keep going round and cycling,
and then we
circles.
Keep bringing up. Do you know what that does when you have gone through a kind of victim situation, and we don't even have access to therapy, psychosocial support? I had to laugh because I'm sorry, I had to laugh, but even the educated ones, how many of us go to the therapy to go for psychosocial support? No, we don't have all these things. And then what you do is, when you leave victims the way they are, it is more problematic for the society. So you see a woman, or for instance a man, who is always shouting and always so frustrated. There is a root cause. There is something that was left unanswered. It may have
unresolved trauma.
Yeah, unresolved trauma that might have been rooted since when they were kids or something. And then we now have a situation where everybody says Nigerians are always angry on the street, for instance.
Nigerians are angry with a good reason. We're going to wrap up shortly. Let's talk about regulation as well in the media space. So one of the things that we have seen a lot of the time. I mean, I work in a highly regulated space, you know.
Because I may say something now, they will come and give you fine now.
A highly regulated space, you know.
You have said something that is offensive, or you allowed that bloody lawyer to come on your radio station. You know,
I mean, we get that. Or you allow this person to speak on the phone and say this, so it's your fault. And so we get a lot of that. So there's a lot of regulation. So sometimes it's hard to do the job because you are so afraid of, you know, the fines. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, you pay the fine. You can tell with your station, but you're paying it any which way. So it also falls on you. Let's talk about the place of regulation, because I know one of the other things that the former minister was also trying to push for was to also regulate online, you know, journalists. So if you put out a content online, you say you're supposed to be registered, you go to regulate and things like that. I know that at the end of the day, when you have freedom, you know, you should also be responsible with it. But where exactly do you draw the line between responsibility for freedom and the outright, you know, almost draconian laws and rules that they, you know, wrap around it?
You see, like me, I totally don't believe in having a special law for social media regulation. Why? First, you have a civil court. If somebody is speaking an untruth, like, you know, that's why I said I'm not going to support someone like Erisco, for instance. If you felt that Choma was speaking, you know, falsehood, all you had to do was to file against her in a civil court and say this is defamation, and then she will go to court. And you know, the major defense to defamation is the truth, and she will go to the court and defend
herself,
and that's it. Two, we have the Cyber Crimes Act, of course, a very controversial one, and it's still in operation already. It can apply both offline and online. It's as simple as that.
So why create new laws?
Why do you create new laws? That was what we were saying when they brought about that falsehood.
Yeah. It's a very long name.
That they went to Singapore and went and brought and took it. You know, very strange situation. So we don't need new regulations, really. For instance, journalists can actually regulate themselves. We still have the Nigerian Press Council, for instance.
Yes, and it has a whole list.
And it has the ethics that everyone in the journalism space can follow. Yeah. And they can hold themselves accountable. That should be, if you feel about a responsible government that actually understands the gravity of having a democracy, then they should promote that. They should promote self-regulation. Now, for even the online space, even the journalists can actually self-regulate.
Yes.
All you have to do is create that. In fact, the platform of the internet, we shouldn't lie, is very broad, and it allows for for information to move at a very unprecedented manner. We get that. Now, every person who gives up of any falsehood should know that they will be responsible for that falsehood. And it's so simple that we already have the body of laws. We have the Constitution. It's just for people, as the people are not implementing laws. Do you know what I mean?
They want to create more.
We have so many laws, even in provisions, even in the criminal code, even penal code that is against false information. Even when you give information that incites the public, it's there in the penal code and the criminal code. It's just offending that I didn't outline it, but they are there plenty. The government can actually use, people can actually even use these laws, like, this social media and you did this, blah, 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 or you give the person notice to pull down whatever they have there. For instance, I don't know whether you saw the story of DJ Switch and DJ something that was trending.
Yes.
You saw the way she came out. Yes. She said, "Oh, that was not me, but Linda Ikeji has done this. Please pull it down within the next." And that is it. That means we are regulating ourselves. So when you see a false news, what you do as a person initially and first and foremost is to counter the falsehood with truth. You know the truth. Put the truth out there.
Exactly. I mean, and thankfully, X, well, I used to call it X, Twitter, has has community notes. So somebody says
Yes.
something, you know,
Oh
you can
yes,
go
and you
through
can
a community
report.
note,
You can
and you can
report
also
the issue.
report, you know, these
Did we
platforms
report the
as well.
president of the whole president of the Federal Republic of
I got
Nigeria?
Twitter shut down.
we
Anyway,
got, but we can report. That is what
exactly.
is, you know,
That's
that's the
another thing.
reality. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show and
Thank you
for
too.
talking about all of this. If you want to watch a recap, we're on our YouTube, so you can go and watch it again if you missed it. All right. I'm speaking with Mojirayo Ogunlana, a digital rights lawyer. She has so much, so much that she has done and is doing. And I'm particularly very excited about this one for the online gender-based violence, especially against journalists. And I look forward to seeing how the work progresses. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
Thank you for having me. I had a very lovely time.
Fantastic. Great to know. All right, Stereo Classic FM 94.3 Abuja, the station that plays every song you know.